Talk for a few minutes about the different kinds of webinars that there are. And this is not an exhaustive list, but I want to give you an idea of different types of webinars that people use.
This video is brought to you by EpiPies Academy.
Because not every webinar is the basic sales webinar, which might be what you're focused in. A sales webinar, you're trying to make a sale. And there you have a specific offer in the webinar that you're trying to eventually convince people to purchase. Now, no webinar should be all sales. No one wants to watch a webinar and then simply get sold to. But in a sales webinar, you know that your purpose is to sell a product, a membership, or something along those lines within the webinar itself. Other types of webinars that I use, you can have a membership or community webinar. In there, you're trying to basically make your current tribe feel a higher level of affiliation with you and your brand. Those webinars can be teaching, they can be Q&A, but you're not selling anything and you're not permitting the general public. This is for your tribe who has already traveled part of the road with you. So that membership or community webinar can be really important in giving your people some Q&A time, some face-to-face time directly with you. That's similar to a coaching webinar. A coaching webinar is for people in your tribe in which you're trying to move them along in whatever journey it is that you guide them on. So that type of webinar, coaching webinar, could have Q&As. It could have time in which people specifically talk about where they are in your program or what progress they've made. They may be setting specific goals, or they simply may be talking about how they feel about the journey. So we've talked about sales webinars, we've talked about community webinars, we've talked about coaching webinars. Another type of webinar that people frequently use is an open educational webinar. And this is a training webinar in which you're trying to establish yourself as an influencer and expert. This is the type of webinar maybe done streamed in traditional webinar software, or maybe you use YouTube or Facebook or something like that. But the idea here is to educate. And by educating, you establish yourself as a go-to expert in your area of expertise. So maybe if you are, for example, showing people how to fish, maybe you have a webinar going through different types of lures. If you are showing people how to cook, you might create a webinar where you have a recipe that you're going through. Now you may question, well, why wouldn't I just do that as a recording and put that as a video? It's the back and forth aspect of the webinar that allows you to interact with the potential audience. So those are 4 types of common webinars that you might use in your sales program.